is a project that started in 2020, and within these 3 years we have tried to find a little bit more insights and knowledge on the drivers of migration, the factors that involve the integration of migrants. We have come up with 2 main outcomes. The first one is we have created a technological tool. We have called it EUMigraTool, which what it does is it predicts numbers of migrants arriving into the European Union in different countries of the European Union with the purpose of helping NGOs and these associations working on the field, assisting migrants to understand what they should expect. Another important outcome from our project is that we understand that the end users of the tool are not governments, but we want to provide information and knowledge about migration flows to governments. So we have produced 5 different policy briefs of 5 different topics, hot topics in the field of migration. We have also come up with events to promote the results and to circulate that and establish a dialogue with the policymakers and with the governments to how to improve the current situation.
A lot of the migration, of course, also happens through irregular channels, and given that nature, of course, it's difficult to get the proper data around these arrivals and how people are moving in these flows. But there are also challenges when it comes to the data that you would use to then actually predict those migration and arrivals.
The main issue and the main challenges you will be confronted with developing these forecasting tools on migration flows is that there is no exact qualitative data that can predict this. Normally they are using, most of the developers and the models that are being run is being based on open access data. Telegram, X, better known as Twitter in the past, Facebook. So once there is an event that happens, let's say the war in Ukraine, you probably can detect which is the most common route that these people will use where the social media fit. The problem is how you determine the quality of this data.
The reality is that a lot of these governments that might be interested in our tool, ultimately maybe the purposes that they are intending are not aligned with ours. So for us it's very important that the tool is not misused and, for example, used for putting extra obstacles to those migrants willing to arrive to a host country, because ultimately the idea is to help them and assist them in their arrival and in the whole integration process.
We are focusing on all the stages of migration. We really believe that integration should start from day one and even before, from pre-departure if possible. And we also realize that an integration strategy and these measures cannot be just focused on the migrants. They need to also include the receiving society and acknowledge that the receiving society has a very important role to play in integration, in successful integration.
So what we find in my own research, but also in the research of other scientists, is that we have to distinguish between short-term and long-term presence of immigrants. So in the short term, usually there is a negative correlation between attitudes to immigration and the incoming size of the migrant population. But in the long term, after people had some time to adapt, let's call it like that, actually these attitudes become more positive, and they are even more positive compared to other regions or countries where the size of immigrants is lower.
But when it comes to the newly arrived protection seeker migrants. They come, of course, with traumas and different issues which need to be sorted out. And that takes about 5 to 7 years from when you arrive to when you actually is a resource for the labor market. So it's a long period. So that is problematic, I think. That is something which we need to look more on to tighten that period. It can't take 6 or 7 years from a newly arrived to enter the labor market.
A lot of the big organizations that get a lot of the funding are European-led, and they treat migrants or refugees as beneficiaries, and they're just numbers to them. So that means that the narrative and the stereotypes don't really matter to those organizations.
When funding a research project like ITFLOWS, the EU requires that the research engages not only scientists, like social scientists or data scientists or researchers, but together in the research project also users, practitioners, those who work on the ground on aspects like managing migration flows, like for example municipalities, NGOs or civil society actors.
We didn't involve migrants as such, but we involved the NGOs working with migrants. And as I said, they are the ones who know also the reality of what's going on. And they are the NGOs that tested the technological tool and that gave us the feedback that they believed was necessary in order to improve and to come up with a tool that is useful and that is based on reality.